Well, good morning, everyone. It's such a beautiful morning, so full of prayers and this feeling of loving kindness. And that is, of course, my subject that I want to speak on today is kindness. It's the perfect week to speak on kindness because it's Valentine's Day, day after tomorrow. And of course, that's the day we celebrate love. And what could be more loving than being kind? The Dalai Lama would always say, be kind whenever possible, and it is always possible. So, think of all the moments of kindness that have been shown to you in your life, even today. Even today. In writing this talk, I was thinking of some of those moments in my life and I was remembering this one time when I first moved to Oroville to become the minister there, my first ministry. And I didn't know anyone, and I was house sitting for a board member who was gone. They were on summer vacation, and I was way out in this rural area, way outside of town. And one evening in the dark, I went outside to my car to get something, and the front door had this automatic lock on it, and I was locked out. I locked myself out, and I didn't have the keys, and I didn't have my phone and all. I checked all the doors, everything was locked. And, I was in a strange neighborhood and I didn't know anybody. And, it didn't feel like the safest neighborhood, probably in part because, I didn't know the area. And I was wondering what to do. And just then, someone pulled up in a car across the street, and I saw that it was a woman. And so I walked over to her house in the dark, and I shared that I was new to the neighborhood and house sitting, and I had just locked myself out. And she was a younger Hispanic woman, and she seemed kind. She seemed concerned for me. I told her all the windows were shut and locked, except I did notice this skinny little window, um, the bathroom window that's right above the tub. And, it was so narrow, I didn't think that I could fit through it. And so she said, let's go see it. We walked back across the street to the house I was in, and we looked at that little window, and she said, I could get through that. And I said, wow, really? Are you sure? Because, I'm fairly thin and I don't think I could. And I'm actually pretty good at climbing through windows. But she wanted to try it. And sure enough, after we got the screen off, I gave her a lift up to the window and she got through it. And she walked around inside the house to the front door and opened it and got me back in the house. And I was so overjoyed. I just grabbed her and hugged her and just thanked her and thanked her and thanked her. And later on I was just thinking, that's so incredible that she would just help a stranger in the dark that she didn't know without hesitation. She really was the epitome of a good Samaritan. And I was thinking, who knows what would have happened, if she hadn't helped me. I'd probably have had to walk a few miles into town in the dark. So that was one act of kindness that I will never forget. There's a beautiful scripture in the Bhagavad Gita that says, when a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. The Gita also says, that one I love who is incapable of ill will. That one I love who is incapable of ill will, who is friendly and compassionate. I recently learned that this week, besides Valentine's Day, there is also on Friday Random Acts of Kindness Day, which I didn't know was a thing. It's on February 17th. And there's a Random Acts of Kindness website, and I've been really enjoying it this week, and it has kindness ideas. And one idea is to be a friend to a lonely neighbor. And I could add to that and help them when they're locked out. And they suggest other ideas such as having a judgment-free day, complimenting with reckless abandon, signing up to be an organ donor, leaving quarters at the laundromat or vending machine, going to a nearby nursing home and finding out who doesn't get visitors, writing a positive comment online, taking someone to a special place, and befriending a new person in your community. And many of these ideas go hand in hand with the practice of making new connections that I spoke about a couple weeks ago. So that suggestion of signing up to be an organ donor made me think of that beautiful song Bonnie Raitt wrote entitled Just Like That, which she just won a Grammy for last week. She won the Grammy for Best Song. And I was just so over the moon delighted about that, because you might remember a few months ago I was talking about that very song. I am going to learn it. I just haven't done it yet because I want to do it justice. But it's this incredibly powerful song about healing and kindness. That Grammy was so well deserved, and it made me so happy to acknowledge, music that is about healing and wholeness and kindness and redemption, really. Because she wrote it about a true story that she had read about a woman who lost her son when he was young. And in part, she blamed herself because she felt she wasn't there for him. The way Bonnie wrote it in the song is, if I hadn't looked away, he might still be here today. She felt that she wasn't there for her son. And after he passed, she had donated his organs. And soon after that, she moved away from that town. She just had to leave that town, and she just lived with this immense grief and guilt for many years. Well, one day there was a knock at the door, and she opened it, and there was this young man standing there, and he said he was looking for Olivia Zand, and she was Olivia. But she said, well, why does he want to find her? And he said, well, I have something I think she'd want to know. And she normally wouldn't let in a stranger into her house, but she felt something in her heart, and she let him in. And he came in and he sat down and he shared with her that he was the recipient of her son's heart. And he invited her to listen to his heartbeat. And in that, in being with this kind young man who had her own son's heart, years of pain began to be released. Years of pain began to just self-liberate. Just like that, her life changed. Just like that, that grace of, that meeting allowed her to finally begin to heal. And so I just feel so much kindness in this story. Grace and kindness, the kindness of receiving life through a donated heart. What act could be kinder than giving someone life? And this young man wanting to find Olivia and thank her, which allowed her to begin to heal. The Dalai Lama, I just think he's one of the best teachers on loving kindness, so I'm going to quote him a lot today. But he always says, a stranger is a friend you haven't met yet. A stranger is a friend you haven't met yet. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at everyone that we haven't met yet. They're a friend that we haven't met. It's amazing how people can be strangers in one moment, and in the next moment, they affect your life in a way you never forget them. Like that neighbor who saved me, from being locked out of a house on a dark night in a strange neighborhood. Like the young man who helped this woman finally be able to move on and heal. So we all have innate goodness and kindness. And the Fillmores, the founders of Unity, they said again and again that our essential nature is divine and therefore inherently good. Even Anne Frank, I was looking at quotes on kindness, even Anne Frank wrote, I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. And as Anne Frank knew all too well, it really depends on what we cultivate as qualities, how much we prune away negative conditioning and live from the heart, live from the heart. One of those suggestions for random acts of kindness was having a judgment-free day. The Dalai Lama wrote that love is the absence of judgment. Love is the absence of judgment. I'm going to give a talk on judgment and discernment because they're very different. We can have discernment, which is a healthy thing. But I love that quote, love is the absence of judgment. Now, being judgmental of ourselves, we're sometimes our harshest critic and of others. It's kind of a way our heart shuts down, even to ourselves. And so the antidote is to be allowing of ourselves, accepting and allowing of ourselves, and accepting and allowing of others. Um, I was in a grocery store here in Ashland right before Christmas, and this man walked by me, and I could smell this really strong smell of alcohol. And he told me I had beautiful hair, and just glancing at him, I noticed, very dirty, disheveled clothes, and I could tell he was inebriated and he had bloodshot eyes. And a part of me wanted to recoil, kind of in protection, but another part of me saw him as a brother. And I just felt concern for him. And I felt this, I don't know, he touched my heart. And so I thanked him and I smiled at him and I made eye contact with him. And I continued shopping, and he smiled and went on his way. But I really felt the God in me met the God in him. We were able to have that real connection. I've always loved that teaching from Jesus that whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. That the creator, the I am, wears a million disguises, some really good disguises, some distressing disguises. And sometimes, we want to judge instead of being kind or being loving. And yet, you know, it's those who seem broken that really need that kindness most of all. That, maybe they haven't had anyone say hello, maybe in days. And then there is that flip side of the challenge in keeping our heart open and not closing when someone is not kind to us, right? When someone is judgmental to us or harsh to us. Um, Again, the Dalai Lama's got a great quote that addresses that. He said, "A truly compassionate attitude towards others does not change even if they behave negatively or hurt you." It's so similar to Jesus's teaching from Matthew 5:43. You've heard that they were told, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But what I tell you is this: love your enemies and pray for your persecutors, so you can be children of your heavenly Father, who causes the sun to rise on the good and bad alike. I've always really loved the last part of that teaching. Be like our very source. Be like love itself. Love itself causes the sun to rise on good and bad alike. That's unconditional love and kindness. And so I feel like, we can be like the sun, and not withhold light from those who are unkind or expressing negativity. And that's a deep teaching. It's a tall order. I'm still working on it myself. But it's really asking of us a higher capacity for loving kindness that isn't so easy, maybe for most of us. Um, we tend to feel close-heartedness towards those who are unkind to us. My goal for me, is to not ever put anyone out of my heart, even, if I might have to establish healthy boundaries with a person. That song I sang at the top of the service, try to love one another right now. The operative word is try. So here's an example. Um, being a music director for a lot of years at 3 different Unity churches, I'm always putting effort into offering the best music and performance I can, every Sunday. And, I've gotten over the years lots of positive feedback. But there has been this one person who has often found fault with my music, and they feel a need to express um, a criticism. And, over time, I've done my best to stay open and consider, okay, well, let me just, how can I improve, But often I sense that it may be more about them than about me and my music. And I can kind of sense they have a habit of being judgmental and critical. And so for me, once I let go of feeling criticized, I actually feel compassion for them because I imagine it's hard to live with a mind that has that habit of being judgmental all the time and critical all the time. I'm pretty sure it would feel a lot better inside to just feel an acceptance and a more allowing, more easy allowing and embracing. And so for me, I see it as a practice to stay in my heart, even with a critical person, you know, and I see growth in myself because years ago I might acknowledge that person after the umpteenth criticism, but my heart would close. It'd be like a way to feel safe for me. But now I feel strong enough and fortified and clear enough that I don't have to take it personally. I can keep my heart open and at the same time establish a healthy boundary. And now I mean, that quote, pray for those who persecute you. I mean, I can wish peace for, anyone who offers criticism, right? And I can grow in being able to allow and and choose kindness, right? The Dalai Lama says love is the absence of judgment. Love is the absence of judgment. And we have to watch ourselves when we want to judge the judger. That's always really interesting. We want to judge the judger for being judgmental. So the Dalai Lama says that overcoming our harmful emotional reactions, that itself is a form of compassion. I'm going to say that again because I love that. Overcoming our harmful emotional reactions is itself a form of compassion that is not just for ourselves, but for everyone that we connect with. We can watch when we feel aversion and when we want to call up the protection, right? And where we want to keep someone at arm's length. And we can ask for prayer. We can ask for inner guidance. And that guidance might be next time I'll say, actually, I'm not available for feedback because I do find it's most often critical and it doesn't feel constructive. But I do care about how you feel. And I'm not open to discussing this anymore. So that's having a healthy boundary and it's stated with love, right? That's such an intricate balance, keeping our heart open and sometimes having those healthy boundaries that are needed at the same time. It's a fine line, but it is possible. The Dalai Lama says we can consciously overcome the grip of our own destructive emotions, our anger, our jealousy, or overly critical nature through the effort of continually cultivating loving kindness and compassion. I love how similar the teachings on kindness are in all the different religions. I've been quoting Buddhist teachings because they speak so much about loving kindness. But the teachings from Jesus on being a good Samaritan, such a fantastic parable. And there's also a wonderful Sufi story. You've probably heard it. It's called The Three Gates, but I think it's worth repeating. The Sufis advise us to speak only after our words have managed to pass through three gates. Three gates. At the first gate, we ask ourselves, are these words true? Are they true? And if they are, then we let them pass on. And if not, back they go, right? Sometimes we have an opinion, right? And that can be very different from someone else's. So opinions are often not absolute truth. The second gate where we ask a question is, are they necessary? Even if they're true, do they need to be said? Do they need to be uttered? Is it actually going to help someone, you know, or is it going to create discord? Or is it irrelevant, right? And then the last gate is, are they kind? Are they kind? There's that encouragement towards kindness. if we feel we must speak out, then we need to choose words that are supportive. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it loving speech, a way that we speak that's loving, that doesn't wound, right, or cause embarrassment. The thing about unkind words is they can last for years. They can affect us in a way that every time we think of that person, we feel kind of an unease in our heart. It'd be so much better if every time someone thought of us, they smiled, right? They remember us as loving them, and we remember them as loving us. So I love that Sufi teaching of the three gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So, in closing, I hope this exploration of kindness as a quality of love inspires you. That First Corinthians most famous quote in the Bible, love is patient, love is kind. The very second word to describe love is kindness. That passage describes love in a lot of ways, but kindness is the very second word. So this week, as we celebrate Valentine's Day and Random Acts of Kindness Day, may we find even more ways to express the love that we are through acts of kindness. And I thank each of you for all the ways that you are love in action, that you are kind, that you are giving and expressing your inner goodness, your inner godness. It makes a difference. It makes this world a better place. So thank you for letting love and kindness shine brightly in your heart today and in every day. Om Shanti. Om Peace.